And welcome back everyone to the Dean Den and V8 Creative, where on this episode we're getting the beast on the ground. Yes, you did hear that right. Those chassis stands are being thrown away this week and the beast will be on its wheels. Now, this gives me the great opportunity to actually adjust the suspension geometry on the RS because it's critical to get this correct, not only for driving in the future, but for fitting that composite body shell. To make sure those wheels sit perfectly in the wheel arches, the gap hugs around the rubber. It just is going to be amazing. So our first job, before I put the wheels on this monster, is to fit the hydraulic brake lines to the front and rear calipers. Once we've done that on all four corners, then I'm going to focus on the handbrake cables that when I installed them, I just tied them up. But now I have those two calipers on the rear discs. What we can do is route those cables with P-clips, pop riveted onto the chassis, and then also tightened and adjusted to the correct tension on the handbrake mechanism in the cabin. And then once I've done all that, then it's ready to put the wheels on, and then we're going to lower this car to the ground onto its wheels. So let's just start spannering. Hi everyone, and you can probably tell by my shiny face that the UK is currently experiencing a heat wave. And for us here in Blighty, boy, when it gets over 30, we just wilt. We really do. And the Dean Den is hovering around 35 degrees at the moment, but I have some alarming news for you. We have a black dog down. We've got a black dog down. What are we going to do? Poor old Roofy Doof. He is so hot, he just doesn't know what to do. Yep, you're a good boy. Well, anyway, I'm going to leave him there and start some spannering.
Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over.
So in the last episode, you saw me fitting the caliper brackets, the calipers, and the discs. Now, to complete the brake system installation, what we have to do is connect these brake lines, FLEXIs, call them what you will, onto the rear of the calipers. Now, the eagle-eyed of you out there, when you saw me fitting these brake lines to the chassis, there were two things I did that I didn't really highlight at the time, but they're really, really important steps. Now, at the end of these brake lines is what's called a banjo connection, because it looks like a little banjo, I guess. And what you'll have seen is what I've done is I've put a stainless steel nut and bolt just through this hole, just for a temporary measure. And the reason I did that was to ensure these were sealed against dust and debris as I was building the rest of the car up. So that was tip number one. Now, tip number two, this banjo, when it's actually bolted onto the caliper, has this orientation. Now, what I did is when I fixed this line onto the T-piece, which is by the master cylinder, I ensured that this line was in the right orientation. Now, what we're going to do now is to connect this banjo to the caliper. We're going to use, I'll get it here, and I'll put an image up in the top right hand corner of this picture of, I'm going to use this small M10 sort of hollow bolt, so to speak. And what we have is we have this bolt assembly. We then have a copper washer, which then goes through the banjo. And then there's another copper washer, which goes on top. And then this whole assembly is basically screwed into the rear of the caliper. So while I'm here, I'll just spin this plastic plug out, like so. And I'll just start this with my fingers. It's a 14mm head. I'll just do this up finger tight. And And let me just get the spanner. So the 14mm spanner, and we'll just nip this up, holding the banjo so it goes perfectly vertically upwards. Now, these fittings are torqued up, and it isn't a particularly high torque, but you have to be so careful because of the fine threads going into this forged aluminium. So if I put the torque wrench on here, hold the banjo, and just tighten up. There we go. And that will have crushed those copper washers just enough so you're not going to get any brake fluid leaking out of that banjo joint. And there we go. And if we see the root of this, which goes over the top of this wishbone, will clear the suspension as this entire suspension moves up and down.
Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away. To the groove and the light that flickers. We get lost in the crowd, it's getting thicker. We get away from the drinks and chatter. Haven't said a word, but it doesn't matter. Feel the air get thinner. Standing in a blurry dream. No one else can see us. Live your life within the moment.
Well, you know when you have these plans and they don't really sort of work out. Well, I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll sit in the engine bay, and then what I'll do is I'll fit the handbrake cables, and you can look from this angle. Well, I've set the lighting up, sound, camera, but I can't move. It's just no room in here to move. I mean, it's honestly, it's quite small actually. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be routing the handbrake cables. Now, they come out, if you can see behind me there, they come out of the rear bulkhead, one each side. And what we're going to do is focus on this side. So the cable comes down the chassis member, and it's pop riveted and P-clipped, and then it comes around, threads around, and then at the back it goes onto the handbrake caliper, and obviously I'll change the camera angle to show you that. So what I'm going to do first is I've pre-drilled these holes. And I did that when I was putting on all the electrics and everything. And now what I'm going to do is pop rivet it on these P-clips and then work my way down to ensure this cable is routed in the right place, really, because you don't want it in the way of the exhaust, the engine, the transaxle, the drive shaft. You sort of get what I mean. Anyway, just watch me try and get out of here now. Oh, the things I do for YouTube. Ow! Okay, let me get the pop riveter and some pop rivets. So, I'll put the P-clips on, it's through, and one done. Two done. Three done. So at the back here we have our handbrake caliper, and what happens is this cable threads through underneath the rear wishbone, then goes through this casting. There's a hole which it then sits, and then this inner cable goes around that small pulley and then just clips into this arm. And basically how this works, when you pull the handbrake on, this cable is pulled inward, which then lifts this lever, which then makes the handbrake caliper pads go onto the disc. It's as simple as that. Now, obviously this is loose at the moment, but once I've put the P-clips on the root of the handbrake cable. We'll adjust the tension at the front by the handbrake, and then it's done. Really straightforward. Anyway, let's go and do some drilling.
There's something about the way you make me feel inside. I'm counting down the days till we fly away, heading to the sun, only you and me. Don't wanna waste another day being stuck here in this place. No, wanna hold your hand in mine, watch the sunset in your eyes. Baby, I want us to act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa.
It's time to fit the boots to the machine. So let's get with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some background music on because, well, everyone knows how to put a wheel on. Anyway, let's get going.
Live your life within the moment, moment, and don't go wait until the morning, morning. You never know when it is over, over. All that I know is we'll get older, older. So let us dance this night away.
Wheel one.
Our bodies move to the groove and the light that flickers. We get lost in the crowd, it's getting thicker. We get away from the drinks and chatter. Haven't said a word, but it doesn't matter. Feel the air.
Now for the rear boots. The big boots. The huge boots. They are just huge. And the size 305 30Z R19. Serious Michelin rubber. Let's put them on.
So let us dance this night away. Feel the air get thinner. I'm standing in a blurry dream. No one else can see us. So let us dance this night away.
Every time I'm going out, the same things keep happening. New boy, same tricks. Coming close to me now, trying to be smooth. So here we go again, here we go again. You're trying to buy me drinks, and I don't like your cheap tricks. Take it somewhere else, would ya? Would ya? I don't know what you think, but I'm not one of those chicks. Take it
Right, she's on the ground. And I must say, the process I used for using a jack and pieces of wood to get the car down, a bit sketchy. So I wouldn't recommend doing that at all. So my recommendation is ignore what I did and make sure you get a second person and get 2 jacks. Okay? So there we go. But as you can see, she's low. And I mean, she's really low. And even Rufus feels bigger now because it's not so big compared to him. Hey? Well, I suppose I better get on with it, hadn't I? Right, front and rear ride height first. Are you going to help, Ruf? Yeah. Good boy. So when setting up the suspension, the first thing we have to do is set up the ride height on the car. Now the car has to be on a flat, stable base, which clearly this garage is. And what we need to do is set up the front and rear ride heights from the front suspension bush. Now I don't know if you can see that block of wood. I know it's pretty poor down there, the lighting, but we have a good inch, probably more, 1.5 inches. And the reason I cut a block of wood is it's far easier to use a reference like this rather than keep using a ruler again and again and again. So what we're going to do is to lower the front of the car. What we need to do is loosen off the bases on the springs, on the coilover shocks, and allow the springs to relax slightly and the chassis will drop. And it's easier for me to do this if I just jack the car up and then I'll whiz it round with the adjustment tool, which comes with the Nitron shocks. So bear with me and I'll just move the camera around. So here's the adjustment tool that comes with the shocks. It just has a pin, an angle pin one end and a straight pin the other. And what happens first is we pop it in these holes and then basically undo the locking ring. And that's the locking ring, so we spin that down. Now what we have to ensure is when we spin this down, and we do the same the other side, that when we're finished, this distance here is the same, so on both sides. So basically, both shocks and springs are at the same rate. Now, what we do now is find the holes on the seat ring, and then we just wind those down.
Whenever I'm with you, I am alright. There's something about the way you make me feel inside. I'm counting down the days till we fly away, heading to the sun, only you and me. Don't wanna waste another day being stuck here in this place. No, wanna hold your hand in mine, watch the sunset in your eyes.
Blimey, look, I've only gone down a little bit, jeez. Right, let's do it again.
Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Wow.
So there you go, the front ride height has been adjusted now to 120 millimeters, and she's low. And I mean really low. I mean, she is seriously low. Now, I do apologise for my zombie killing t-shirt. It's a long story why I've got this, but my V8 Creative t-shirt's in the wash. Now, let's move to the back and do the same with the ride height on the back. Okay, so now we're on the rear of the car. Now, the rear of the car has a ride height of 170 millimeters. So now, if we compare that to the front, you can see it's a couple of inches. Now, this is measured from the chassis, the lower chassis member, underneath the rear suspension joint. And if I have a look, boy, I'm a good that much. So I'm going to jack the back up. I'm going to wind these springs well, not all the way down, but a long way down. Right, I'll speed it up and put some music on this.
Are the one who makes me feel feel as good as I do. Baby, I wanna still act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical.
Now we've got the front and rear ride height exact to the millimeter. The next part of the process is to set the camber of the front wheels. And the camber is, if you're looking head on to the car, as you're sort of doing now, what we want is the top of those wheels to slightly lean in between 1 and 1.5 degrees. Now, how on earth do you do this? I haven't got any complex measuring equipment. Well, the way in which it's done is what we do is we set the wheels vertical, and then we know that the rotation of the ball joint, which is here, one rotation is 0.3 of a degrees. So once we have them vertical, what we do is we wind that ball joint in 4 rotations each side, and that should give us pretty much spot on what we need. Well, for body fitment anyway. Now, of course, when we get the car on the road, it's going to be full setup with laser geometry. So this is really getting as close as you can in the garage. Now, clearly, I can't rotate this ball joint here because I've actually torqued it down onto the upright. So what we need to do is jack the car up, remove the wheel, or actually just rest it slightly back, remove both of these bolts, and actually rotate the top wishbone instead of rotating the ball joint, which is exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get the wheels perfectly upright first of all, and then you'll see me wind them in 4 times. I think it's time for more background music.
I'm so done with. Oh. I'm so done with. I got tons of soul. I got tons of soul. I'm so done with it. 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 I'm so done with it
I am alright. There's something about the way you make me feel inside. I'm counting down the days till we fly away, heading to the sun, only you and me. Don't wanna waste another day being stuck here in this place. No, I wanna hold your hand in mine, watch the sunset in your eyes. Baby, I want us to act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. To escape, and here we are, driving narrow streets in a rusty car, leading to the sea. Think we're getting close. We should take a pic, baby, strike a pose. I remember every day that I spent right here with you. Yeah, you are the one who
Okay, all done. And I tell you what, that was hot. Doing all this in this hot weather, oh, blimey. Anyway, so ride height done. Front, camber and toe complete. Rear, toe in and camber, all done. And I must say, it's a fairly simple and straightforward exercise. It just takes a bit of time and patience. So, she's rolling. My God, she's a low beast. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I was going to do some questions and answers, but I'm so exhausted. And I've got to get this ready to post on our usual Fridays because everyone waits for that Friday feeling. Anyway, next week, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I could do fuel tanks, or I could do the upgrade for the interior. I could do that. I'll see. Anyway, or I might decide actually to reveal what engine I'm going to fit. Well, you'll just have to wait and see. So until next time, happy spannering, and remember, intelligence is creativity having fun.
live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the